Hagamos.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this second day of Medita Mundi in the English language, brought to you by the International Cultural Association of Gnosticism. And on a voluntary basis, all of us are here to share knowledge and tools for improving our lives physically and spiritually. So yesterday we looked at an introduction to the whole process of meditation and the principles of this ancient science. Today we're going to look at the nature of the practice of meditation and its benefits, the actual objectives that meditation has. If we think of why we want to meditate, well, then we need to recap a little bit to remember what we were talking about yesterday. And if we look at the three lectures we looked at, the first is what is meditation, its underlying principles, the second, objectives and benefits, as we mentioned, and then how to meditate in practice. If we move on, we'll ask our technician Jorge to help me see the slides actually on the screen here in front of me. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to be seeing it now. Excellent. See, Jorge's in Argentina and I'm in Switzerland. So it's a complex operation that's going on here, and it's going on in several different languages. So here we are all working together in order to try and produce this interesting result. So if we move on to the next slide, Jorge, please. We want to go to slide number 5, objectives and benefits of meditation. And tonight we want to talk a bit about the actual practice of breathing and mantra, vibration and energy, and what these have to do with our well-being and state of mind so that we can help ourselves in daily life. So let's start off with the benefits. We mentioned yesterday health. The benefits of meditating and breathing and relaxing, focusing, obviously calm our nervous system. And this is fundamental because we are electrical creatures or beings. We have a very complex nervous system, and agitation, stress upsets the balance of our cells and our organs, and above all our endocrine system, which is the generator of all the hormones that actually make us tick and function, including our happiness. In the same way, an agitated mind is conducive to stress and ultimately illness. And then consciousness, of course, in a stressed state is almost impossible to achieve. That is to say, awakened states. So spiritual or higher states of being cannot be achieved in these altered, unnatural states, which our modern culture produces on a daily basis. So we should be looking now at the 5th slide, Jorge, objectives and benefits. We move on. Jorge's and Argentina's behind us in time, I can see here. We need to move on to the next slide, Jorge, please. Exactly, and the next one. Just move on to the next image, Jorge, please. La próxima lámina. Exactly. Okay. Y la siguiente. Good. Okay, here we were. We talked about the planet being an energy. In itself, our planet is alive. It's an organism. It's we cannot imagine that a dead mass produces and gives birth to billions of different life forms. That's illogical. Our planet behaves exactly like a human body. It breathes. It has a respiratory system. It feels itself. It adapts itself, and more importantly, it regulates itself in such a way that all organisms can live on it. And as evolution goes by, time goes by, it adapts to all climate changes and achieves its own kind of balance through ice ages or through periods of heat continents come and go, and yet the planet majestically is able to carry on adapting and evolving through all of this and accommodating new species according to the bioelectrical magnetic conditions, the biochemical conditions, and so on. So the planet itself keeps going on. However, we on it as inhabitants of the planet, by the very definition of having consciousness, are intimately connected physically and energetically and also spiritually to the planet. So this means that if we wish to achieve well-being and balance and awakening, undoubtedly we have to study and take seriously our relationship with Mother Earth and Mother Nature and the elements that conform creation. These are things we have to deal with through understanding our thought patterns and our breathing patterns, our work patterns, and also our eating habits, in order to combine all of those aspects into well-being and health that harmonizes our understanding of who we are and what we are doing with what our planet is actually doing. And that's something that we are not taught at school or in university. We call this planetary culture. It's the culture of integration with the planet. So if we understand that just as we have consciousness, then it is also to be understood that a higher body such as a planet that houses and produces permanently countless millions of life forms also has its own consciousness. That is why this isolated thinking process of Homo sapiens, our species being the superior race on this planet, is utterly absurd when it comes to consciousness, when it comes to connection. If we understand, as we mentioned yesterday, our upside down thinking, if we put everything upside down, turn it around again so that it actually comes the right way around, and we understand that absolutely everything has consciousness, all beings and creatures on this planet are conscious, and any being that does not have a distorted energetic pattern or behavior patterns that are unnatural to its function and its meaning are all in harmony with creation. Which is why when we look at nature, for all the law of eat and be eaten and the food chain, there is a harmony between all species. Everybody has a space and everybody is able to coexist. Even the carnivores and the prey and the predators actually manage to live together in harmony. And if we look at these wonderful documentaries we have access to now of the African savanna, we will see that actually lions, zebras, and deer, oryx all live together. They don't live separately. They live around each other, and they only run away from each other when somebody's hungry. When the lioness starts yawning, then they run away. So in our culture, to understand why we need to relax, why we need to change the paradigms, the ideas that we have in our heads in order to be able to enter into harmony with our own center of gravity, with our own feelings, then we will understand what this has to do with the planet. And our role in the planet as beings who have the use of reason are able to exert an influence on the planet which no other creature can do. Precisely because we have a faculty of thinking and reasoning and a capacity to be self-aware and manipulate our environment in ways that no other species can do. And it doesn't mean that we're better than the other species. It simply means that we have faculties that are superior to, because they're of a higher evolutive state. And this obviously brings with it higher responsibility. It means the learning process that we go through in the human kingdom are of a higher nature and are much more demanding. And so the learning process of the school of life in our form as human beings means we have to deal with right and wrong, which animals do not deal with, because their lives are guided mostly by instinct. Whereas we have the same animal instincts. In effect, we are animals in human bodies, animal human bodies, with a thinking mind. So we have all the same instincts that we bring from the animal kingdom, the same instincts of survival. We also feel the same fear, even the proper and the good instincts of motherhood and so on. We also bring them with us. So again, this is an introduction and putting into context the reason why without meditation, and we cannot enter into an inner connection and harmony either with ourselves or with the planet we live on and the universe, the greater universe around us. So our goal is reconnection. That's actually the objective of the whole process. And that's what meditation is really about. So if we move on to the next slide, Jorge will take us there. We will see an image of someone in the traditional lotus position. And these colors and these symbols are indications of what our 7 energy vortices that we mentioned yesterday, or the chakras, which are vortices which are not physical. They belong to the inner dimension of the human inner anatomy. And in order to stimulate these energy centers, which in turn affect our endocrine system, our pineal gland, they affect our pituitary gland, and in turn they affect our entire nervous system, and the functionality and operation of the frequency of vibration of our body changes. So part of meditation is to do with creating frequencies of vibrations within ourselves, physically and internally. How do we do this? Well, today we're going to focus on vocalization or mantralization. Because when we relax and breathe, which is the next part of what we'll do, then we also need to stimulate the internal centers so that they begin to function and give out energy, which replenishes our mind and spirit and also our cells. So each of these chakra corresponds to different sounds or vowels. If we concentrate on our forehead, for example, if we think here on the where people conventionally associate that with the third eye, which is the faculty of clairvoyance or clear seeing, then there is a chakra here, and this one we stimulate it with the vocal or the vowel I, and it's pronounced E as in the Spanish pronunciation. So I don't know if all of you, how you're seated or what your conditions are, but those of you who wish to do this, if you have the space and the possibility of doing so, then I would recommend you can also do this. I will do it, and you'll see me doing it, and you'll have an idea of how to do this. If we focus here in our forehead and try to feel the vibration and breathe in, and we'll vocalize the I. E. We breathe in fully, filling the abdomen, and after that we fill up the lungs, the cavity in our lungs, and then we can breathe out all the air, producing this vibration, concentrating in our forehead, and we will feel the vibration there. The same happens with in the throat. There is also a chakra here in the throat, in the larynx, and this is stimulated with the letter E in English, pronounced A. This one we will do it like this. And we can feel the larynx vibrating. And then with practice and with time, each of these centers begins to awaken, and they begin to revolve. And eventually we begin to see colors or forms, images, and so on, because we are waking our own body up. This is what it's all about. It's about waking up our body, waking up our inner senses, in order that we can reconnect to the possibilities of what we are really here for, and wake up out of the dream of the illusory way of thinking that we have been programmed to have, in order to be able to have real experiences of who we are and what is going on inside of us. So the next one down, we vocalize them in the order of E or I, then the A, the E, and then we do the heart chakra, which is the O, or. We've all heard of the mantra Om, and the great Buddhist mantra of Om Mani Padme Hum, which is a fantastic thing to be doing also in meditative practices. But in this case, we want to focus only on the individual vowels that stimulate each chakra. So if we look at the yellow one, it corresponds to the heart chakra, and it's with the O. So we should pronounce this one O. So again, close our eyes, breathe in deeply, focus on feeling our heart, and vocalize the O. O. Then, if we look at what does this action stimulate, what does this chakra do, and what do the previous chakras do? The I stimulates the faculty of clairvoyance. It means just as we can see with our physical eyes, we also have internal vision. We're able to see in the subtler dimensions and frequencies of nature. And this is done through stimulating the frontal chakra. The larynx chakra stimulates the faculty of clairaudience, which means hearing sounds from subtler frequencies of nature and the cosmos. In the same way that we mentioned in the previous talk, that the great composers such as Mozart, Beethoven, and others, they heard this celestial music, and they were able to not only hear it, but they were able also to interpret it and write it. They actually were able to write the language corresponding to what they were actually hearing. Nobody else was hearing it. They were hearing it. And this is because they, for whatever reasons, had access to that faculty. So if we now go to the heart chakra, the O, this stimulates intuition. And intuition is something totally essential to clear thinking and clarity, and obtaining ultimately illumination and knowledge, true knowledge, or the truth, if you like, something that is beyond thinking, beyond rational, subjective comparisons. So that is what we get by vocalizing the O. If we then go down another level to the solar plexus, we find the umbilical chakra. And this we stimulate by pronouncing the U, which will be pronounced U. So again, we breathe in, we concentrate in our in the region of our solar plexus, and we vocalize the U. U. Continued practice of vocalizing the U produces telepathy. We're all familiar with the fact that we think of someone and then they call us, or we get butterflies in our tummy when we get emotional about a relationship or something, or an attraction to somebody. Then this is because in our solar plexus there are also nervous endings, and it corresponds to a communication system, if you like, an emission and a reception of messages, which again are non-intellectual. They're non-technical technical. It's not a technical language. We don't speak it. And this, again, telepathy is a higher faculty. So just as we are accustomed to communicating through speech, we can also communicate without speaking. But again, these are faculties that need to be developed and they need to be stimulating. So you can imagine what would happen if, as children, we learned to vocalize and learned mantra, learned meditation, learned concentration, learned to use and develop our inner faculties, how different our lives would be now as adults. So in the West, of course, we are now, certainly in this day and age, becoming much more open to these Eastern knowledges, which are not Eastern knowledges per se. They're knowledges that have always been available to mankind. But we associate them and interpret them through where they've come to us through the Eastern traditions. If we then go down again in the male endocrine system or the gland system, the prostate gland is also to be stimulated with the mantra or the vocal M. M in esoteric practices is also, it also corresponds to a chakra, the prostate chakra, or the uterine chakra in the female body. And this we will stimulate with the M, which effectively stimulates our creative energy, the energy of creation, of which we are all made of, and how we came to exist at all through birth and gestation and so on. So we breathe in. And then we stimulate the sacral chakra, the chakra, which you can't see in this image, but it's effectively in the base of the coccyx bone, or in the coccyx bone. And this again is a chakra and energy center which is connected in internal energy systems to our reproductive organs, and also through the spinal column to the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, and the whole unfolding of the rest of the intelligent glandular systems in our body. And this one we stimulate it by exercising pressure on our coccyx, effectively by contracting our buttock muscles and breathing. When we breathe in deeply, just as we've done for the other ones, we can do this contraction, and then we will vocalize the S. The S is like the hiss of a snake. And this chakra is called the Kundalini chakra, or it's where the Hindus explain, or in the ancient cultures, where is the sacred serpent is found. It is the fire energy, and it's how effectively in the esoteric understanding of energy, creative sexual energy is actually transmuted and transformed, not to create physical children, but to stimulate the internal birth and growth of all our inner faculties and higher capacities, creating effectively what is a kind of spiritual awakening and birth. And this chakra is fundamental, hugely important, and we do it with the S in the following way. Interestingly enough, when we talk about transmutation, alchemy, and transformation of energy, which are essential to spiritual development, it's all about using life energy, which is why we need health, we need vitality, we need to have a healthy mind, a healthy body, and we need to be active in our daily life to create energy in order to be able to transform it and regenerate ourselves as human beings, mentally, physically, and internally. So in order to enter into a process of meditation, what we're understanding at this moment is that it's not simply a process of how do I relax and go into a state of calmness, and this will improve my well-being during my life, and I will be able to live a better life. This is actually not the objective of meditation. It is a benefit of meditation. It is a natural result of a much more interesting and revolutionary and extraordinary science of self-transformation. So the act of meditation requires a lot of corresponding knowledge, preparation, and disciplines in order for it to become truly productive. Which is why understanding the nature of the chakras, understanding the nature of energy, understanding the nature of vocalization or mantra means word of power, stimulates and vitalizes the physical dimensions of us. Because we're alive physically because we have a vital body, like it's called an aura in English, that's the way we refer to it, or the vital body, some people call it the ethereal body. And our physical body is intimately connected to the vital body, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to be alive, because life is not a physical thing. Life physically organically can only occur because in a series of dimensions higher above us and subtler, and the higher you go, the more faster is the frequency and the more subtle is the energy and the more light there is. When these condense down, you get the physical realm, which is almost a reverse of what we've been taught in materialistic science, where we think only from the material onwards, and if it's not material and we can't measure it, then it just doesn't exist. It's all woo-woo and weirdery, and it can't be true because you can't show it. Whereas actually the nature of existing descends from the higher planes, and the physical life, our physical world, is at the densest expression at the level that we find ourselves on of energy and creation. So in other words, to bring ourselves back to life, to health, we have to resonate with higher planes, which is where we came from. And we have to learn how to do this. It's a science. We don't naturally do it anymore. So that being said, we can close this little introduction to chakras, energy, and vocalization, and move on to the next slide, where we want to talk about breathing. So Jorge, if you can move on, please, to the next slide. Here we're seeing again, the slide talks about the physical plane, which you've just mentioned, the mental plane, and consciousness. So in that order, from the bottom up, the physical plane, we can talk about an astral plane, a vital plane, an astral plane, then a mental plane, then a causal plane, and we then find the world of consciousness. So there are different dimensions. Each one is subtler and higher and less complicated the further up you go. And we originate at the highest one. We came from there, but not as we are now, not with a name and a surname, as an essence. And here we are learning in the opportunity of being in human form with senses to discover what is the nature of creation itself and how to awaken within that. So if we move on to the next slide, Jorge, please. The body and the senses. Well, let's talk now about breathing. Breathing is the stuff of life. If we don't breathe, we die. And interestingly enough, in modern times, most people breathe to survive. They don't breathe to live, because our body breathes automatically to keep itself alive. But to become, to actually live fully, we have to learn to breathe fully. So seldom do we use our deep lung capacity in daily life, because we would have to learn to do that consciously. And again, especially if we live a sedentary life, we're so up in our heads, concentrated on all the affairs and things we have to sort out in daily life, we actually completely forget about breathing, and the body does it automatically. In the same way, in a stressed environment where whatever our profession is, we'll grab a sandwich and throw it down, and yes, we have the sensation that we've eaten, but there is no true eating going on. There is no true digestion of that can go on, because it's not a conscious process. We're not concentrating on it. We're not integrated with it. So the point about balance, the point about breathing in this sense, is we have to learn to breathe consciously. And that requires exercise. It requires time. It's not something that happens just like that. So again, we'll start again. How do we breathe deeply? For those of us who are familiar with this, well, we're just recapping many of the things you already know. But for those of us who are not so familiar with this science, then breathing, we start from the abdomen. We breathe in, filling our abdomen, actually. And then we breathe up into our lungs, filling our lungs. So, and this means that an enormous amount of air enters into our body, much more than normally does when we're just sort of. So if we try to vocalize only on survival ration air, it won't work for us, because we have to breathe in lots of air in order to breathe out and produce a corresponding effect inside of us through the vocalization, the mantra, or the relaxation process. So conscious breathing has numerous positive benefits for us. If we learn to breathe deeply and fully, this oxygenates our blood. And that's hugely important, because the blood flows to every single part of our body, and the oxygen that comes into it through the breathing in the lungs, in the exchange process in the capillaries, is what gives our cells life. And science is quite familiar with all of this now, that the more oxygen there is in the bloodstream, then the healthier the brain is. The less oxygen is in the bloodstream, then actually brain cells die. And if we eat unhealthily and produce an acid environment, our digestive system, and our blood turns acid, then we create a propitious environment for fatal diseases such as cancer. So breathing is something that is actually a giver of life. And it's something we need to learn to do. So let's do some simple breathing exercises. You can do them in your homes. And if you're not able to do them now for whatever reason, then you'll get the idea from what I'm doing. And again, you can find all of these references in internet, and you can further investigate them. We're again just giving you an introduction into what are really important things to know how to do in order to get good results from your practice in meditation. So let's start. I'm going to close my eyes, because closing your eyes is a fantastic thing for cutting out all the distraction and impressions that are constantly bombarding us in our daily environment, and concentrate and focus on ourselves. And we breathe in from the abdomen. And in this case, I'm going to retain the air in this exercise. So I'm breathe in, and I won't breathe out. And we can retain the air for quite a good long time. And the more practice we have, or the fitter we are, then we can have truly deep breathing. We can breathe in very, very huge amounts of air, and we can breathe it out lengthily and slowly. And if we do that with a mantra or a vowel, then we get the full benefit from it. And if we breathe in and withhold the air, technically it means that the maximum amount of oxygen is exchanged in the lungs, goes into our bloodstream, which is a very, very positive thing. And it creates lucidity in our brain. So effectively, we can regenerate our thinking processes partly by learning to oxygenate our bloodstream through breathing and exercises. So if we breathe in 3 times deeply, hold our breath, and then let the air out slowly and fully until our solar plexus also caves in until the last bit of air has gone out. And then we breathe in again slowly, hold the air in, and then breathe out again slowly. We are beginning to learn the science of breathing. And it's something we need to do every day for at least 20 minutes, just to stay healthy, just to guarantee that we are awaking and we're going to be on top of the day and not always behind everything with a lack of oxygen, tired. We suffer from fatigue. If we don't eat properly, don't digest properly, then we feel heavy, and so on. And how are we going to meditate in those conditions? How are we going to achieve well-being in a heavy, asphyxiated environment? So let's do it 3 times, beginning now. Breathe in. Hold our breath. Just tune into ourselves. Breathe in. Withhold our breath. If you do this for some time and you're new to this, then it can produce dizziness, but that's normal. That's nothing to worry about because we're not used to having so much oxygen in our bloodstream. But that very quickly is something we get used to, and the body accommodates itself to that. Now we will learn a mantra which we can do whilst we're doing a breathing exercise. There are many of these, but the simplest one is Han Sa. And when we breathe in, we imagine mentally that we are saying the mantra Han. We hold our breath. Now, if we want to do this exercise and get the best out of it, if we remember the sacral chakra and we tighten our muscles to put pressure on this chakra and breathe in, imagining that all our energy is rising up inside of us, filling our brain, our mind, covering all of our body with this energy, and we're holding it in, letting the body assimilate it, and then we breathe out, then we will get absolutely marvelous results, because anything to do with personal transformation has to be a results-based process. Otherwise, it's pure theory. So if the things that I'm saying, if you go away and do these, and they don't get your results out of them, then you could conclude that, yeah, he made it up. It's not true. However, all of us who do these exercises, who study and bother studying respiration, meditation, self-observation, going inside ourselves and facing what we normally don't see, learning to understand our thought processes, opening ourselves to the extremely unpleasant sides of ourselves in our unconscious selves, and we see them and calmly contemplate them, then the result is knowledge. The result is awakening. The result is progress. And this is what we want to achieve. So here we've dealt with vocalization and we've dealt with breathing. So now the next step will be to look at, well, what's the best way or position to prepare ourselves for a meditation? In this image, we can see the posture. And as we mentioned yesterday briefly, actually, it doesn't particularly matter whether you're sitting or whether you're relaxing back in a couch, or whether you're in much more formal positions of meditation or traditional ones, such as cross-legged, or in the lotus position, or including we can lie down on our bed or on a clean floor and spread out our arms, spread out our legs forming a star and assume that posture. Or we can also assume what's sometimes called the posture of the dead man, which is having just lying completely straight on our back and having our heels touching each other. The feet can be separated; they don't have to be touching, just the heels, and our hands loose and relaxed, flopping beside our body. The important principle of all of these positions is that through breathing and closing our eyes, we relax, and that all our muscles detension. And not only that, that we can feel that our joints are relaxed, and we can feel our nervous system kind of calming down. And that's what it's all about, just calming down, letting go, and removing ourselves from the stress, the identification with the drama of our daily life. All of us live in a theater, a personal, private drama, and all of those things are what we need to withdraw from into an inner space. So meditation, the preparation for meditation, is all about how are we going to create inner space? How am I going to free up space in my highly complicated, stressful existence? I need space. We all need space. And that space is inside of us. It's not living in a paradise somewhere out in the mountains or in the countryside. That is amazing if we happen to have the possibility of doing that. Certainly we should be visiting and spending a lot of time in natural environments. That is very necessary, because our body and our senses drink up the natural environment, because our body is natural. So our body understands natural sounds, even though we don't. Our body perceives the harmony of a stream and its sounds, and it fuses with it. Even though we are so removed from those sorts of perceptions, we don't notice it consciously, but our body does. And this is called health. These are therapies. Now, coming back to the posture, we're clear now that there is no golden rule about the position. The important thing is that your spinal column is straight and not bent over, because the energy flow through the spinal column is designed for energy to flow through it, through the actual channel where the nerves are found inside of the lumbar vertebrae and the 33 vertebrae of the spinal column, but also around it. And again, the internal anatomy, or the ethereal anatomy, the vital anatomy, the astral anatomy of our physical bodies is very similar to, but there are a lot of things going on energetically that are physically not understood. So breathing, relaxation, posture, and the goal is to create inner space, to find our space. Each one of us has the possibility of retreating into a very private, very intimate space, which exists in us. We have that space, because if inside of us is the whole universe in potential, then how on earth will we not be able to have our own inner privacy? And I'm not talking about thoughts and secrets and things like that. I'm talking about a space where there is genuine peace, because nothing enters in there that is not peaceful. And it's our source, if you like. So it's going back to our source, to our origins. And those origins revolve around creating what's called a center of gravity around your own heart. Because the source of our life is the beating of our heart. And our heart is a physical organ. But the physical organ is merely the physical expression of something that connects to all the dimensions of our being and possibilities. And the heart center is what connects us to the inner being. It's what connects us to our essence. It's what connects us to what people call God, divinity, our own divinity, our own higher self, if you like. But this has nothing to do with our personality, nothing to do with our ego, nothing to do with our thoughts. This is beyond all of those things. And we come from there, we belong there, and we can reconnect with that source. That source gives us light, wisdom, peace, intelligence, hope, energy, courage to face the situations we have to go through, continuity. It gives us everything that we need, because it's the purpose of being here, is to work through the contradictions of living in a world of duality and opposites, rights and wrongs, positive actions, negative actions, work it all through and reconnect to the source. So it doesn't actually matter what your conviction is, whether you're Christian or whether you're Muslim or whether you're Buddhist or whether you're atheist. At the end of the day, we all have these things. We all have a center, and we have, it's much everything that is useful in life in terms of what we're talking about in these talks. We all have those things in common. It's only our minds that separate us. It's only our beliefs that separate us. And we are so extremely imbalanced that we go to war and kill each other over beliefs. Well, actually, we all have the same needs. So people go and kill other people who have the same needs as them, have the same relationships as they have families, and they have likes, they have dislikes, they have hobbies, they have aspirations. They even believe in a superior being and call it a different name, and yet they're willing to go and kill each other. This is utterly, utterly irrational, absurd, instinctual, out of control behavior. And yet in the human race, this is apparently normal. And this is not normal. And even though we would say, yeah, well, I don't do that. Yes, but inside of us, we have those same elements. It would be illogical for one of us to claim seriously that we don't have violent thoughts now and again, or impulses, that we've never had the impulse to hit somebody, to steal from somebody, to rip off somebody, to lie to somebody. And these things are simply untrue. All of us have every aspect of human behavior inside of us. We just don't see some of it because we preserve a self-image of ourselves. That is, I'm a nice guy, I'm Mr. Nice, and I don't know why some people say bad things about me. So all of us try and maintain a positive self-image. And this is not very helpful to awakening, because it's very unrealistic. Because awakening has nothing to do with whether you're a good person or a bad person, a nice person or a not nice person. It's to do with understanding what is going on inside of you and working through that. The result of working through those things and working in a positive direction of regenerating, creating the true human inside of us, and true soul, if you like, or spirituality, which does no harm to anybody or anything, then we are on a path to becoming truly human. Which is why the great sages always try to explain to us that actually we are not human beings. We are not a race of Homo sapiens. Sapiens means wise. We are not wise. We do very unwise things, like destroy our entire environment and destroy each other and destroy ourselves psychologically, mentally, and in many other ways. So we are not a wise humanity or a race. But those human beings who have so wished to have achieved wisdom and have achieved true humanity, have achieved fulfillment and realization. And the nice thing about it is they told us about it. And they left guidebooks, they left teachings, they left great sciences. And that's all we're doing here, is reconnecting with the great science of reconnection to the source of everything inside of us. And at the end, that is the universal energy, which is effectively love, of which most of us would like to have lots of, but we don't give a great deal of it mostly. And we find in our moments of sincerity, we don't often have a great deal of it because there's so much in the way, there's so much clutter. So again, this brings us to vocalization, breathing, relaxation, posture, and the preparation for entering into meditation. We need to add a few things to that, because we've got to think about our environment. Where are we going to meditate? So what's the preparation for it? Well, if you've just had a huge dinner, then probably meditation is not going to be the activity that's going to work for you. There's no point in meditating or trying to meditate and do these practices if you have a heavy stomach, because it doesn't work. So it's best to do them when you have gone through a digestive process and are not full up, or before eating, or at some convenient moment. And then there are a couple of other things to bear in mind, which is you want to try and find, if you have an apartment or a flat, wherever it is that you can do this practice, you want to try and keep it clean. It wants to be a place where it feels good. And you prepare it. Well, how do you prepare it? Well, with things like natural perfumes, essences of plants like rose essence or orange essence, or things like heliotrope, jasmine, things that are agreeable. We all have heard of aromatherapy, and we've all heard that the natural aroma of plants is stimulating and healing. It induces subtler states in our mind and in our inner state. So that's one thing. Another thing is music. Do we do it with music, or don't we do it with music? We mentioned this yesterday. Well, you can meditate without music, because the object is to go inside of ourselves, feel ourselves, and become familiar with ourselves. We don't actually need to have music to do that. However, music is a great way to begin. We mentioned especially classical music, relaxing music, and the results of that are it actually helps us go into a state of relaxation and also inspiration. But it's not actually a prerequisite. So bear that in mind, because the idea is not to say, yeah, these are the rules, you must do it rigidly like this, like this, like this, with that, and if you don't have this, then that's bad, it won't work for you, and so on. No, we must all find our own way. And someone who is an adept in meditation can meditate anywhere, because they have created within themselves a state of consciousness. They have an inner space which they are connected to permanently, and therefore they close their eyes anywhere. And there may be a bulldozer next door, a building site, or people shouting at each other, but they have a state of inner calm. They have bothered to create it, and therefore they have access to it. And therefore they can enter into a process of reflection almost anywhere. So bear that in mind, that actually this potential is in all of us, and it's all there waiting to be conquered. It's like your freedom, your possibilities are there always, all the time, within you, 24 hours a day, but you haven't noticed yet. You haven't been taught to do it. We haven't been told in our civilization that actually we are truly wonderful, potentially wonderful, amazing, extraordinary beings. And there is actual method to becoming that. And so rather than going through peculiar processes of raising self-esteem by trying to convince ourselves that we're beautiful and nice and all the rest of it, it would be a much more intelligent thing to do than to actually just wake up to the good, the bad, and the ugly inside of us, and distance ourselves from the whole thing by studying it and comprehending both the good and the bad, and going beyond all of that and achieving something much, much more interesting, which is a true identity. And a true identity is not your name and surname. Your true identity is the true knowledge that is hidden within you and which you can potentially connect to, which is not you, but it is within you, and you are connected to it. And the search for transformation, self-realization effectively means that the less of me there is, the more of truth there is within me. And therefore, you become truth, you become knowledge, you become wisdom, and become one with that. And that is a state by which the human elevates to and becomes ever nearer and nearer, step by step by step, in a very gradual process, to a higher form of being, a higher level, spiritual, divine, doesn't matter how you want to call that. It's a step-by-step elevating of consciousness, knowledge, wisdom, personal power, personal empowerment, capacity to do a great many more things, and not to live in this confused, complicated fashion that most of us do. And also avoid a great deal of suffering, unnecessary suffering and unnecessary conflict. Because you understand the process of how it gets there in the first place, therefore one doesn't need to unconsciously fall into the routine process of conflict, dislike, like, and so on. And this is awakening consciousness. This is raising the state of being within ourselves, elevating ourselves to a higher state of being. And so, having said that, then we come pretty much to the end of this second talk, or class, if you like, or part of this Medita Mundi 3-class process. And tomorrow on the 19th, we will go into the last section which is, of course, to do with the actual process of meditation itself. We've paved the way through the first class by trying to put everything into a context. We've developed that in this class, and we've talked about the preparation and the importance of vibration sound. We've talked about the importance of breathing, of oxygen, or prana, as it's called in the East. And now tomorrow we will deal with, when we enter into the process of meditation, what actually goes on there, and what is it that we need to learn? What basic things do we need to know about being or entering into a state of meditation? So we will recap on a few of the things we've done till now and then move further forwards. So if there have been any questions, then we can see if there are any now, or we can again see tomorrow, answer any questions you leave on the site. And I hope that this has been productive for you, many of you. And even if it's a recap for some of you, I hope that for those of you that are wanting to know more about it, that it's been stimulating for you, and that it's raised a lot of questions, which is also very important. It's this isn't about telling you this is the answer to everything, this is who you are and how you have to be. This is not about that. It's not about conditioning anybody. It's the contrary. It's about explaining to somebody that actually we already are so conditioned to being something we are not, and something totally artificial that doesn't harmonize with the cosmos, that what we're actually trying to do is point out that fact and enable people to seek their own freedom and their own way through using and applying practical tools and a practical science in order to get practical results. So hopefully this rings true with you, and this has been useful to you. As of yet, I don't see any questions. Jorge, ¿hay preguntas? No, I can't see any at the moment. So in that said,